Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable my supervisor, Ma'am Gita Mutiara Hati and Ma'am Indah Damayanti. The Honorable my examiner, Sir Mulyadi and Ma'am Kasmaini. Today, I would like to present my seminar result about an analysis of the autonomy level of EESP students. Before I start to present my seminar result today, let me introduce myself. My name is Fitri Andriani. I am a student of English Education Study Program, University of Bengkulu. I divided my topic today into 4 points. First, Chapter 1, Introduction. Second, Chapter 2, Literature Review. Third, Chapter 3, Methodology. And the last, Chapter 4, Result and Discussion. First, introduction, background. Students who are independent of knowledge have a good abilities. They have a sense of curiosity that they must fulfill in themselves. It makes students want to find out what they don't know. Autonomous learners are students who with a great sense of responsibility for themselves. Based on Dickinson 1995 explains, autonomous learning is now not only to allow students to cater the learning content and speed to their own needs, but also to motivate learning and to lead them to greater language learning. It means that autonomous learner more quickly get knowledge about learning because the student has a desire to learning on his own. Then they have high learning motivation because of that great sense of learning. It makes them have good skills in learning language. Then, based on Dickinson 1995, characterize autonomy learner as those who have the capacity for being active and independent in the learning process. It means that the students being autonomous learner have will have their greater motivations to learning. So here, the researcher will analyze students in ESP or English Education Study Program from semester 2, 4, and 6. According to the researcher, in the class, student enthusiasm for learning doesn't illustrate that 100% of students in English education study programs are autonomous students. And also before the researcher do the studies that the researcher get some previous study like a descriptive analysis of learner autonomy in English language classroom in the second grade students of senior high school asal Lapi Susukan by Horiana 2018. And also an investigation of undergraduate students' belief of, about autonomous language learning by Oriwiwak Nakul and Wichade 2017. And then about autonomous learning, levels of students majoring in EFL, and the role of their teachers in developing autonomous learning by Abdelrazak 2018. This previous study is a guide for researchers to make researchable analysis of the level of autonomy learners in English education study program. In all studies that have been read by the researcher, there has no similar research in Bengkulu. That's why the writer will research about the autonomy level of ESP or English Education Study Program students in University of Bengkulu. Second research question. The research question in this study is about what is the autonomy level of ESP or English Education Study Program students in University of Bengkulu. Third, limitation of the problem. The limitation of the problem in this research that the researchers will limit the discussion just to get information about the level of autonomous learners in English education study programs. And then the objective of the problem. The objective of the problem in this study is to find out the level of autonomy learners in EESP or English Education Study Programs. Next, significance of the research. The significance of the research in this study divided into 2 points: first, lecturer, and second, future researcher. The lecturer in this study um, can know how much autonomy learners in English education study program. It can make lecturer can easy to know the best way to teach an English education study program because they are know how much autonomous learner in English education study program. And then future researcher, the future researcher can use this research to be a guide, to be a guidance to make similar research. And the last in introduction is definition of key terms. The definition of key terms divided into 3 points. First, autonomy level, second level, and third, EESP students. Autonomy level is about autonomous learner in English education study program. The level in this research means there are 4 levels in about autonomy in this research. First, dependent, barely autonomous, autonomous, and highly autonomous. And then EESP students. EESP stands to English Education Study Program. So EESP students in this research means student in English Education Study Program. Chapter 2, Literature Review. First, autonomy. Autonomy comes from Greek, from words auto, self, and nomos, law. Autonomy learner is a situation in which the learner is responsible for all the decision concerned with his or her learning and the implementation of those decisions based on the Gita 1987. And then the 1975 argues that autonomy is an activity of the mind and is present in making choice, deliberation, decisions, reflection, judging, planning, or reasoning. Based on Kalan 1988, autonomy is an ideal with intrinsic value with freedom as an important component. The conceptions of autonomy described above from three experts that um, describe that all individuals are self-directing and self-controlling their lives within a context which includes the autonomy to others. Based on Sansa 2009, links autonomy relatedness needs, which specifically are the need for contact, support, and community with others, leading to autonomous independence. Based on Littlewood 1999, suggested the relatedness idea is a suitable concept for East Asia in his study. Based on Andrade and Bunker 2009, focus on the relatedness between teachers and learners. So the autonomy students have related between teachers and or the teacher role and the learners because the teachers also can influence students to being autonomous learner. Based on Cottrell 2000, the essential characteristic of instructional programs fostering autonomy is how they scaffold instruction functioning as learner guidance, not their control of the decision-making process. Second, autonomous learner versus dependent learner. Learner autonomy has been used in education since early 2018 when it was first used by the educator Henry Holleck. Holleck defined learner autonomy as the learner's ability to take charge of his or her learning. Other writers since Holleck have modified this definition in part depending on whether they see learner autonomy as a means to an end or the end product itself. In taking responsibility for their learning. Learners need to work in partnership with the teachers and other students. Based on Depleter's terms, learner autonomy is essentially a measure of the learner's psychological relation to the process and content of learning capacity for involvement, critical reflection, decision making, and independent action based on Little 1991, page 4. And also, according to DAM 1990, defines autonomy in terms of a learner's willingness and capacity to control or oversee learning. Based on Hicks 1988, page 41, views learner's autonomy as the process in which the learner works on learning tasks or activity and largely independent to the teacher who acts as manager of the learning program and as research person. So here the autonomy learner we can see the autonomy students in learning process. Based on ACE 1996 defines learner autonomy is not self-instruction or learning without the teachers, which doesn't mean that intervention or initiative on the part of teachers is banned. So here, the autonomy is not self-instruction or learning without the teachers, which does not mean that intervention or initiative. And then about dependent students. While dependent students are characterized as students who lack a connection between their class and the topics they're learning, based on Hammond 2015, page 14. It means that um, its difference with autonomous learner, the the dependent students is students who have lack connection in learning process, and also they're not easy to understand about the topic in the learning. Most importantly, this dependent learner lack how to take a new task. I see this among several of students based on Hammond's 2015, page 14. It means that students who are dependent will lack on take a new task. It means that they're also also and also it's can be seen from their task. Thus, in this research, the researcher will analyze about the autonomy level of students is from dependent until highly autonomous level. Here, autonomy level in this research measure the level of autonomy of a person. In this research, the researcher divided the autonomy levels into 4 points. First is dependent, second barely autonomous, third autonomous, and the last is highly autonomous. Dependent level means that when the learners become fearful and controlling in learning, so they need to have some strong strategies to avoid these feelings, and they need teachers in learning because they are not easy to understand about the topic. Dependent level means the total of score of students in answer the questionnaire in this research between 1 until 1.75. Also, some students like answer never true in this questionnaire. And then barely autonomous. Students who are barely autonomous level um, are students who are not dependent on teachers but who are also not very independent in learning, still need help from the teachers but all in several ways. Dependent level means the total of score of students in answer the questionnaire in this research between 1.76 until 2.5. Also, some students like answer rarely true in this questionnaire. And then autonomous. Autonomous refers to the principal students who have responsibility to learning. The autonomous learner is a learner who answered the question, who the total of the score in the questionnaire between 2.51 until 3.25. Also, some students select answer mostly true in the questionnaire. And then the highest level in this research is highly autonomous. Highly autonomous is a students who have a very high level in independence in their learning. These students have such good abilities to become independent learner based on their abilities. Students left in highly autonomous level, the total score in the questionnaire is between 3.26 until 4. So the students also like answer always true. Third, factors influencing autonomous learners. Based on Hicks 1988, said that four factors influence the autonomous learners. First, the role of learner themselves. It means that the learners have their control to being autonomous or dependent students. And then the teacher also have the role in this case because the teachers is someone who guide the student to being autonomous learner. And then the task, if the students have a lot of tasks, so they will being autonomous because they have a need to being autonomous. And then the environment. The environment is um, one of the factor influence the autonomous learner because when the environment can support to being autonomous learner, so the students will be easy to being autonomous students. For dependent and independent statement, independent and dependent variables in terms of cause and effect. The independent variable is the variable that is the cause, while the dependent variable is the effect. Based on Osima and Hogyu 1997, a clause is a group of words containing subject and verb. Some clause can stand alone as a sentence. This kind of clause is an independent clause. And then also stated by Osima and Hogyu that a dependent clause is a clause or a group of words with a subject and a verb that doesn't express a complete dog and cannot stand alone. It means that independent variable, it means that when in this questionnaire means when the students have a desire to learning by their own, but dependent learner, dependent question in this research means like when the students still need other person's help, like a teacher still needs support, I mean. 5, review study. In this research that the researcher um, found several studies that are relevant to this topic. The first previous study is a paper conducted by Zhao 2015 entitled Study on the Meditations of English Teachers in the Students' Autonomous Learning. Second, a thesis conducted by Rahmawan 2020 entitled Students' Obstacle on Autonomous English Learning. And then a thesis conducted by Zulaiha and Harida 2017 entitled Autonomous Learning Strategy of the Successful Non-Traditional Students. And the last review study in this research is a thesis conducted by Golami 2016 entitled Self-Assessment and Learner Autonomy. From Golami research that the researcher take instrument in this research to being the questionnaire in the autonomy level of ESP students research. Third, methodology. First, a research method. This research was conducted to know to know the level of autonomous learners in the English education study program. This research used quantitative research according to the Aliaga and Gunderson 2002, page 81. Quantitative research is explaining phenomena by collecting numerical data that are analyzed using mathematically based methods in particular statistics. It means that in this research, the researcher have some mathematically based methods or analysis in numerical data, not descriptive, based on and then population based on Arikunto 2006 page 120. State total sampling is taking the same sample as the existing population. The sample in this research from semester 1 is 116, from semester 3 112, and from semester 5 64. So the total of the sample in this research is 292. After that, data instrument. The researcher used questionnaire adopted from Golami 2016. The questionnaire includes 44 statements based on 9 dimensions that relate to language learning. The items in these 9 dimensions show whether learners display a greater degree of control in particular factors in their learning. In the questionnaire, all of the respondents have to answer each item on 4 points. The 9 dimensions of autonomy learner are dimension 1, readiness for self-direction, dimension 2, independent work in language learning, dimension 3, importance of the class or teacher, and dimension 4, role of the teacher's explanation or supervision. And dimension 5, language learning activities outside the class. Dimension 6, selecting content. Dimension 7, intrinsic motivation. Dimension 8, assessment or motivation. Dimension 9, interest in other cultures. For data collection technique. In this study, that the researcher used some steps to collect the data. First, prepare the questionnaire. Second, give the questionnaire in the Google form to the samples. Third, analyze the data from the questionnaires. And then the validity of data with expert or lecturers. And the last, displaying the data from the questionnaires. And the last in methodology is data analysis technique. In this study, the researcher used questionnaire adopted from Golami as an instrument to measure the interpretation of the data. Use a Likert scale. The score of independent and independent question. First, always true. If independent will have 4 score, dependent will have 1 score. And mostly true if independent will have 3 point and dependent 2 point. Rarely true, independent 2 point, dependent 3 point. Never true, independent 1 point and dependent 4 point. The score interpreting the level, the score dependent 1.175, level barely autonomous score 1.76, and until 2.5, level autonomous 2.51 until 3.25. And the level highly autonomous, the score 3.26 until 4. In this research that use Bakuri-Siregar formula 9081 page 20, where this research use weighting scale, weighting formula to calculate the data. Like on the screen, the formula of weighting scale. The last chapter 4, result and discussion. Result. The researcher used a closed questionnaire as an instrument in this study. The questionnaire adopted from Golami 2016, which assessed the autonomous of students. The researcher attempted to help identify autonomy level of students in English education study program. In this study, the researcher has 2019 two samples. However, only 2011 samples filled out a questionnaire for 1 week. But 8 students are students from semester 8 in EESP, and also 7 students have multiple answer. So the total sample who answered the questionnaire which could be used as the data was 196 students. Like on the screen, the result of the questionnaires from the students in EESP or English Education Study Program, the data calculation above the data calculation on the screen, can be seen. There were 181 students who were at the autonomous level who calculate 92.35% in autonomous level, and then in barely autonomous level that number of students is 15. It means the frequency or the percentage is 7.65%. And as we can see that highly autonomous and dependent, no students in that level. So, based on the result of the questionnaire answered from the students, it means on the average that some students in autonomous level. Based on the response that have been answered by the respondent, the researcher also provides for presenting the data based on 9 dimensions that used by Golami 2016 in making questionnaire. First, dimension 1, readiness for subdirection. Chart 1, the calculation data of dimension 1. So here the lowest score is 3.3, the highest score is 3.53, and the average score is 3.24, which is included in the autonomous level. So here, readiness for subdirection, um, being become autonomous learners. And then independent work in language learning. The calculation data of dimension 1 can be seen on the screen, the bar chart. The lowest score is 3.3, and then the highest score is 3.53, and the average score is 3.24, which is included in the autonomous level. Sorry, this one is still in dimension 1 direction for subdirection. And then dimension 2, independent work in language learning. The lowest score is 2.95, the highest score is 3.45, and the average score is 3.16. It means include in the autonomous level. So here, independent work in language learning have on average to become autonomous learners. And then dimension 3, importance of the teachers. Importance of the class of or the teachers. The lowest score is 1.05, 3.97 and the highest score is 3.15. So here, it show the significant scores in the terms of the importance of the class or the teachers with a question, um, with the question contains that how important with the question, I mean like the significance, um, lowest score is I am afraid that I want to learn a topic if the lecturer doesn't explain it in the English class, when where the this question being at lowest score with point 1.97, but in the highest score with question about I know how I can learn English the best, it have highest score. It present on the bar chart. It have differences. So here the average score is 2.62, which is included in the autonomous level. And then dimension 4, role of the teachers, explanation and supervision. The lowest score is 1.29. The highest score is 1.95. So the average score is 1.62, which is included in the dependent level. So this dimension in the dependent level. And then dimension 5, language learning activities outside the class. The lowest score in this dimension is 2.75 and the highest score in this dimension is 3.4 and the average score in this dimension is 3. So this dimension or language learning activities outside the class dimension include in autonomous level. Dimension 6, about selecting content. As we can see on the screen, the bar chart of the calculation data in dimension 9, in dimension 6, the lowest score is 2.94, the highest score in this dimension 3.1, and the average score is 2.97, which is included in the autonomous level. So here in this dimension that the average is in the autonomous level. And then dimension 7, intrinsic motivation. Bar chart shows the data calculation of dimension 7. The lowest score in this dimension or in intrinsic motivation is lowest score 3.50. The highest score is 3.66. The average score is 3.56, which is included in the highly autonomous level. So from 9 dimension, just this dimension that include in the highly autonomous level. As we can see on the screen that have highest score from question number 31, 33, 30, and also 40 that still being at the highest level or in the highly autonomous level. And then dimension 8 or assessment or motivation. As we can see on the screen chart 8, the calculation data of dimension 8. The lowest score is 1.60 in the question number 34 and the highest score is 3.6 in the question number 39. We can see on the screen that have highest differences between the lowest score that um, in dependent level and the highest scores is in the autonomous level. So it's have differences that from the lowest and the highest score. So the average score is 2.35, which is included in the barely autonomous level. 9 dimension 9 interest in other cultures. As we can see on the screen, chart 9, bar chart 9. The lowest score is 2.19 and the highest score is 3.47. The average score is 3, which is included in the autonomous level. And then discussion. The current study focuses on finding the autonomy levels of students in English Education Study Program or EESP. They are the students from semester 2, 4, and 6. Um, these students learn English for 6 years at the junior high school and also in the senior high school before join university. Now they are studying English as specializations as um, in the English Education Study Program. The total of students from semester 2 until 6 are 2,082 students that the researcher found that the 90 92.35% of the students in English education study program to be on the level autonomous learner. It means that students in EESP or English education study program dominate at the autonomous level. Based on Dickinson 1987 as cited by Benson 2001 page 30 defines autonomy as the situation in which the learner is totally responsible for all the decisions concerned with his learning and the implementation of those decisions. The theory above relates to the result of the research conducted by the researcher at EESP or English Education Study Program students, where the result is that some students are in autonomous level. That means students have full responsibility in learning and in implementing their learning. And it also means that ESP students have fulfilled their responsibilities as students because students are at high level in education in universities. I mean, Furthermore, based on 9 dimension, the result from the questionnaire answered by the students in English Education Study Program, there is 1 dimension in highly autonomous level, and then in this dimension is about intrinsic motivation dimension. It means the students ESP have high interest intrinsic motivation in this in learning. Then there are 6 dimensions in autonomous level. It means that from 9 dimension that shouldn't dominate in autonomous level. And also um, that 1 dimension independent levels, which is number of students who answer about never true in this dimension. So and then this research actually still have relation with Golami research um, where the researcher tag the Golami instrument in this study. The researcher used 9 dimension as a guideline of 44 questionnaire to understand about autonomy learner of the students in English education study program. In general, this study have similar result with Abderrazak 2018 in his research autonomous learner levels of students measuring in EFL and the role of teachers in developing autonomous learner. When where the result show that generally students non-native English majors enjoy the high level of the autonomy activities range, beginning in to intermediate level. So this research also have the result that students being at autonomous level. Related to the result that show the high level of students' autonomy is also supported by situation that when students facing online learning situation in COVID-19 pandemic, this certainly has an impact of independence on students in EESP. Based on Chan, 2001 also state that the autonomous learner had highly motivated in learning. English learning, I mean. It means that students in ESP which result in this research, some students have been in autonomous level. It is also related that highly motivation on learning as impact from COVID-19 pandemic. This is because they cannot have many interaction with the lecturers. The do limited learning space like in media social in WhatsApp and also in Google Classroom, and also they can learn in Zoom meeting. According to the Little 2001, there are two reasons of trying to make learners have autonomy in language learning. First, if learners are reflect actively engage with their learning, it will be more efficient and effective because it is more personal and focused. Second, if learners are proactively commit to their learning, the problem of motivation is solved. That's all from me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.